Have you ever wondered what it's like to become someone else? Not just anyone, not just a whisper in history. Tonight, you're going to drift into the skin of a name carved in marble. Julius Caesar. A man of stars and daggers, of words and wars. And you, dear listener, tonight you become him. Let your shoulders soften. Let the blankets become your Roman robes. Let the hush of the world outside fall away, like curtains drawn before a story. Before you were great, you were. Small dot, you lie in a cradle of woven straw and silence, in a city that roars with the breath of 10,000 mouths. Rome isn't quiet. It never is. Even in your earliest memory, there is shouting, the baker cursing, the tax collector, the goats screaming on the Capitol steps, the Senate erupting like a beehive at dawn. But none of that touches you, not yet. You are just a baby in the Subura, Rome's crowded quarter of dreams and dirt, of spilled wine and shattered ambition. You don't remember the walls peeling, the roof leaking, the olive oil lamp flickering with shadows. But your mother does, Aurelia. She stands over you like a statue with warm arms, protective, proud, determined that her son, her little Gaius, would not drown in this city's noise. Your father is a whisper in these early years. Gaius Julius Caesar the elder, a man of old blood but thin power. He dies when you're still soft-cheeked and full of questions. And from then on, it's your mother who carves the shape of your ambition like a sculptor shaping wet clay. She tells you bedtime stories, not of fairies, but of ancestors. Your great-great-great-grandmother was a goddess. She says, Venus, goddess of love. And if not that, then someone near enough. She tells you that your name will matter, that it will one day be the name on every tongue, even in faraway lands. You don't laugh. You believe her, because deep inside your child's chest, something already stirs. Not greed, not pride, but a kind of stillness, a knowing, as if the river of your life already flows with a quiet current toward something vast. You are not the strongest, you are not the tallest, but you are always listening. You watch the way men speak and then don't mean it. You watch how power leans not on swords, but on silences between words. You learn the weight of a glance, the value of standing still. When others rage. 12. You see your first body hung in the forum, a traitor, they say. But to you, he looks like a man who said the wrong thing too loud. You decide then, you will never be loud. You will be heard without shouting. Years pass like sandals across stone. You are 15 when Sulla becomes dictator, a brutal man with eyes like frost. He purges Rome of enemies, of allies, of whoever spoke too soon. And one day, he points at you, at your bloodline, your beliefs, your refusal to bow. He demands you divorce your wife. A political move, one you are expected to obey. But you don't. You slip into the night, cloak damp with rain, coins hidden in your boot. You disappear into the hills, sick with fever, hunted like a ghost. You sleep on dirt, eat from the hands of shepherds. You cough blood. You tremble, you nearly die. But you don't, you survive. When the fever breaks, your eyes are clearer, your hands steadier. The stillness in your chest has hardened now, not into hatred, but into a kind of clarity. Power is not a throne, you realize. It's a path, and you're already walking it. When Sulla dies, you return, not with an army, not with vengeance, but with something sharper. Charm. You begin to speak, not loudly, but beautifully. Your voice, like velvet over steel, cuts through Senate halls and city squares. You defend innocence in court. You win cases no one else dares touch. The people begin to murmur your name, not like thunder, but like rustling leaves. Caesar, it means nothing yet. Just another ambitious man in a city of 1,000. But your steps are careful. Your smile, patient. You shake hands with the right men. You laugh at the right jokes. You take every small office they offer you, and then grow larger than the walls meant to contain. You don't fight the river. You let it carry you. But always, you swim just beneath the surface, unseen. Tonight, in the hush of sleep, you are no longer the you of today. You are the boy in the Subura, the man slipping away from Sulla's blades. The name not yet known, but already dangerous. You are Caesar, not the conqueror, not the emperor. Not yet, just the shadow behind the name. So close your eyes now. Let the streets of Rome fade into mist. Let Aurelia's voice hum like a lullaby in the walls. Let the flicker of oil lamps paint dreams on your eyelids. Sleep, little Caesar. Tomorrow you begin to rise. The streets are always wet in your memory, not from rain necessarily. Rome does not weep often, but from spilled wine, rotting fruit, and the dribble of voices too busy to be quiet. Subura is not a place for delicate things, and yet you are born there, wrapped in fine wool among brick and grit and the smell of fish. You are a patrician by name, but in practice, you are just another boy pressed into the crowd. People forget this about you. They see the statues, the laurel wreaths, the marble steps, and they assume you came into the world with one foot already on a pedestal. But no, you were shaped in the mud. The Subura teaches you many things, that lies can be dressed in gold, that power often walks with a limp, that silence is sharper than any blade, that people listen better when you speak softly because they have to lean in. You go to school like other boys of standing, but the city is your true tutor. It teaches you rhythm, the way the market hums in the morning, the clatter of coins, the beat of sandals on stone. It teaches you theater, the way men argue about laws they don't believe in, or cry at funerals of people they barely knew. It teaches you hunger, not for bread, which you always have enough of, but for attention, for meaning, for legacy. At night, you lie on a straw mat near the window, and you listen, not to the wind, but to the sounds of other lives. A woman scolding her daughter, a man singing a song of conquest he never fought in, a priest murmuring prayers to Jupiter, half drunk. You don't close your eyes. You collect them, all their voices, their longings, their weaknesses, their power. One day, you think you will need them. You are not like other boys. Not quite. You do not run unless there is somewhere to run to. You do not fight unless the outcome is already yours. You learn to speak with clarity even when your heart pounds. You learn to pause just long enough that people remember what you said. At 13, you fall in love with stories, not just the ones from Homer or Virgil, but the ones whispered in alleyways, murmured in taverns, etched in graffiti on public walls. You discover that a man's name, once said by enough mouths, becomes more than sound. It becomes a shape in the world, and you want your name to have a shape so large, it casts a shadow over time itself. So you practice. You speak in front of empty chairs, pretending they are the Senate. You debate with birds on the balcony. You charm the neighbor's cat with speeches about grain taxes and war. It's absurd, it's childish, but it's how you begin to train your mouth to match your mind, Your mother watches you sometimes, not with concern, but with quiet intensity. She knows. She's always known. Your first real step into public life is small. A priesthood, minor, ceremonial. You are barely out of childhood, and yet you already wear robes. People smile politely. They say things like promising and ambitious and a good boy. But what they don't say, and what you see in their eyes, is that they don't expect you to last. There are bigger names, older families, fiercer men. You are soft-voiced, graceful, unthreatening, and that is your first weapon, because they forget that. Cobras do not roar. You make friends, not with the loudest boys, but with the clever ones, the ones who know how to listen, how to wait, the ones who will one day become your eyes and ears and whispered messengers in the halls of Rome. You also make enemies, quietly, not because you wish to, but because those who dream boldly are always resented by those who never dared. By 16, you are already being watched. They watch how you never raise your voice in arguments, how you compliment without flattery, how you seem to glide rather than walk, how, despite your youth, your presence shifts the temperature of a room. You are not powerful, but you are becoming noticeable, and in Rome that is almost the same thing. When your father dies, it is a quiet affair, a fever, a sigh, a few ceremonial words. You don't cry, not because you don't feel it, but because you have already begun to understand that grief is private, that tears are for mothers and lovers and soldiers lost in war. You honor him not with weeping, but with ambition. You decide, without quite saying it aloud, that your life will not be small, that the Subura will not be the full measure of your horizon, that your voice will one day echo past these alleys and reach the Senate floor, the battlefield, the stars. The world is not ready for you, but that's all right. You are still practicing at night. The streets go quiet again. The olives are pressed. The bakers rest. The dogs curl beside statues older than memory. And you lie on your back, watching moonlight smear across the ceiling, dreaming not of love or leisure, but of law and language and legacy. You are still just a boy, but not for long. Sleep now, young Caesar. Let the night wrap you like your mother's voice. Let the Subura fall away, street by street. Let your breath slow, like the Tiber at dusk. Tomorrow, you walk into history. The man who wants to stop you, wants to erase you like a chalk mark, is named Sulla. Lucius Cornelius Sulla Felix, dictator of Rome. Old, cold-eyed, iron-hearted. He believes in purges and prescriptions, in names scratched onto wooden tablets, and posted in public squares, names of men to die. He's not loud, Sulla. He doesn't have to be. Power rarely shouts when it is real. You are 17. You have just married Cornelia, daughter of Cinna, an enemy of Sulla, a gesture of love, but also of defiance. Rome watches you, holding its breath. Sulla tells you, gently, almost politely, to divorce her. You done single, quotes it is your first true stand. And in that refusal, you become something more than a boy with dreams. You become a threat. Sulla strips you of your inheritance, strips you of your priesthood, strips you of your safety. You run without glory, without sandals, without the crowd watching through fields, over stones, beneath trees. Your cloak is torn, your boots bleed. You carry nothing but your name and a quiet defiance in your breath. They chase you, the soldiers, the spies, the whispers. But they don't catch you, because you learn quickly how to move without being seen. A lesson that will serve you well. You fall ill, of course you do. A sickness like winter in the bones, shivering in your marrow. You cough until your ribs ache. Sleep until sleep becomes dreamless and deep. You wake under a stranger's roof, a shepherd who owes nothing to anyone. He feeds you figs and lentils. His dog warms your feet. He never asks your name. And for the first time in your life, you are just a boy again. Not Caesar, not son of Venus, not a future carved in marble. Just a sick boy, half wild, half lost, and strangely, it gives you rest, but not for long, because somewhere beneath the fever, the mud, the borrowed cloak, and the borrowed bed, you are still planning, still watching, still becoming, when the worst of it passes, and you are able to stand again. You feel different. You are leaner, yes, weaker, maybe, but also, clearer. The world has tried to erase you and failed. That is a kind of magic. You return to Rome not like a hero, but like a whisper. Sulla dies. Just like that, the man who held your life in his fist disappears into dust, and Rome blinks, confused, suddenly fatherless. The city begins to shift again, and into that space, that silent pause, you step, not loudly, not with trumpets. You return like the river returning to its course. The Senate does not embrace you, not yet, but it doesn't resist you either, because you are clever, and tired men do not fight clever boys. They nod, they tolerate, they forget how dangerous you are. You are offered a minor post in Cilicia across the sea. You take it, not because it's glorious, but because it teaches you how the provinces bleed, how money moves, how Rome is not the center of everything, just the mouth that swallows. You learn to listen to governors who lie, to tribunes who smile too easily, to merchants who worship only silver. You return again, this time more confident. You prosecute a corrupt governor, stand in court, use your voice like a sword wrapped in silk. People listen, they begin to say, Caesar speaks like Cicero, but walks like Marius. They don't know if that's a compliment or a warning. You smile either way. The people are starting to remember your name, and once a name is remembered in Rome, it becomes difficult to unremember it. You begin to study rhetoric, philosophy, spend hours in libraries, but not because you love theory. You're preparing because the world isn't changed by the strongest sword. It's changed by the clearest story, and you are learning to tell yours. Then, something strange happens. You are captured by pirates. Yes, real pirates. Cilician raiders, sunburned men with rotten teeth and loud laughs. They kidnap you at sea, believing you are a noble ripe for ransom. They demand 20 talents of silver for your release. You laugh, you insult me, you say, I'm worth at least 50. They blink, confused, but you're not bluffing. You send your men to collect the ransom, and while you wait, you joke with your captors. You write poetry and read it aloud. You command them to be quiet while you sleep, and you warn them with perfect calm. When I'm free, I will return, and I will crucify all of you. They laugh, they shouldn't, because you do. Weeks later, silver exchanged, you return, not with rage, but with ships, with soldiers, with patience. You hunt them down, every last one, and you crucify them, all of them, but you cut their throats first, a gesture of mercy because you are not cruel. You are exact, The Senate watches, nervous. This is no longer the polite boy from the Subura. This is someone else. This is a man who keeps his promises, even the terrible ones. And the people, they adore it. They adore you. You are not just rising now. You are floating calmly, steadily, like oil over water. You marry again, not for love. You align with power. The lines of your life begin to braid with others. Crassus, the rich. Pompey, the beloved. The Senate, the people, the gods. But we'll get there soon. For now, lie still. You've been chased, sick, captured, ransomed, and yet you breathe. You're becoming more than a man. You're becoming an idea. Close your eyes, Caesar. Let the pirates drift away like foam on the sea. Let Sulla's voice fall silent, like a storm spent. Let the Subura be a distant whisper behind marble. Tonight you rest. Tomorrow you return, and Rome will begin to bend. The sea is quiet now, but it wasn't always. You remember it, the way it groaned under the weight of wind and ambition. The way it held you, not like a lover, but like a jailer with salted breath. You were taken, you Julius Caesar, proud, deliberate, already dangerous, dragged from your ship by men who smelled of garlic, rope, and old victories. Pirates, not the romantic kind, with songs and secrets, but real ones, hard-eyed sun-leathered men who counted silver like children count stars. They didn't know who you were, and you found that delightful. They thought you were just another Roman brat, another prize to ransom, another voice to gag and lock away. But you smiled because you saw it all, even then, the arc of the story, the comedy of their error, the silence that would follow their laughter. They asked for 20 talents of silver. You told them to raise it to 50. They looked at each other, confused, then laughed. But you meant it, because your life was not worth 20. It wasn't even worth 50. It was already priceless. Even if they didn't yet understand. You lived among them for 38 days, and you were not meek. You did not beg, you did not tremble. You mocked them. You wrote poems and forced them to listen. You gave speeches and demanded silence. You slept in the open and told them to keep their voices down while you dreamed at night. You watched the stars, that same sky. Over Rome, only wetter, lonelier, and you plotted. Not revenge. No, that word is too crude. You plotted justice. You made jokes. When I'm free, I'll come back and crucify every last one of you. They laughed harder, because they were fools, and fools do not hear prophecy when it wears a smile. Your men brought the ransom, all 50 talents, gleaming like your mother's earrings. You were set free with a pat on the back and mocking salutes. You bowed, you sailed away, and then you came back. Not alone this time. You raised a fleet. You gathered soldiers. You summoned permission from no one. The Senate hesitated. You were not authorized, they said. But it didn't matter by the time they spoke. It was already done. You found the pirates anchored, lazy with wine and memory, and you took them, one by one. You didn't burn their ships. You didn't slaughter them in fury. You captured them with care, and you hung them, just as you'd promised. Crucified, but first, you slit their throats. Mercy, you said, not cruelty, though no one quite believed you. They say that story spread through Rome like spilled oil on marble. That Caesar young, audacious, smiling Caesar had turned his own kidnapping into legend. The people loved it. The Senate. Not as much, because it was a reminder that you didn't wait for approval, that you didn't need their permission to act like power. You simply acted, and Rome, already tired of rules and rot, began to notice. You returned home taller, somehow, not in stature, but in presence. You walked like a man who had danced with death and led the rhythm. You were offered more now, positions, invitations, whispers. You refused most of them, not because you were modest, but because you understood that desire, withheld, becomes irresistible. You made yourself slightly distant, just enough, and still. Your name grew. You spent your time where others didn single quote store, in courts no one wanted, with cases others discarded. You defended the lost. You uplifted the forgotten, not out of kindness, out of brilliance, because you knew if you could make the forgotten speak your name, Rome would one day shout it. And Rome was beginning to mumble it already. Caesar.cai, US, Julius Caesar, a name like a drumbeat, a name beginning to echo. You were sent to Hispania as quaestor, a small office, a dusty post. But dust does not frighten you. You observe, you listen, and then you act. You settle debts, calm tensions, charm local leaders, and in the corner of a crumbling temple, you see a statue of Alexander the Great, young, immense, conquering you. Stand before it in silence, and something turns in you. A sadness, no, a spark. You whisper, not aloud but inside. By the time he was my age, Alexander had conquered the world, and I have done nothing. It's not quite true, but truth, to you, is a tool, and you need this feeling now. Not despair, fuel, you. Return to Rome once more. This time, the path is steeper, but clearer. Your pirate tale becomes a quiet refrain among the people. Parents tell it to their children like a myth. Be brave, be clever, be Caesar. You don't correct them, you just nod, humbly, as if the legend isn't already curling its fingers round your throat, as if the shadow of destiny isn't already walking beside you. You sit quietly in the Senate chambers now, not speaking often, but always being heard. Your eyes do more than your voice. You watch how men fidget when the laws no longer suit them, how they whisper when the grain runs low, how they lie, not out of malice, but out of habit. And you begin to imagine a world where the lies stop, where the old systems are reformed quietly, effortlessly, by someone like you. But you say nothing, not yet, because the timing must be perfect. You've learned that from the sea, from the pirates, from your own ransom. Everything has its tide. Let the Senate think you are patient. Let the people think you are kind. Let the gods think you are harmless. And let sleep come to you now, like a sail full of wind. Let the salt air fade. Let the crucified silhouettes blur. Let the sky become just sky again. Rest, Caesar. You are not yet emperor, but already the empire dreams of you. The first time they crown you with laurel, it is not in triumph, but in ceremony. You wear it like an actor wears a mask, not to become something new, but to remind the world that you've already changed. You are not a general yet, not a conqueror, not the ruler of anything more than a whisper, but you are rising. You return from Spain and step into Rome like it's a stage. The audience restless, the actors stale, the script begging to be rewritten, and you are already holding a pen. The streets know your name now, not just the patricians, but the butchers, the bakers, the boys chasing chickens through the alleys. They say it casually, like a lucky charm, Did you hear what Caesar said? Caesar's speech last week. Brilliant. Caesar fixed that trial like a magician, didn't he? You smile, always humbly, because it's not the praise that feeds you, it's the echo. You run for office.aed. I let it's not a throne, but it's a key, and you use it to unlock the hearts of the people. You throw games lavish, thunderous, unforgettable, not just because you love spectacle, because you know that Rome forgets pain when it's watching beauty. Gladiators clash, lions roar, wine flows, the Senate grumbles, of course. You're spending money you don't yet have, but the crowd sings your name, and Rome has always been a creature ruled by applause. You rebuild temples, you restore statues, you act as if you already hold the future in your palm, and, in a way, you do, because the people begin to see you not just as a man, but as Rome itself made flesh. They say, he remembers the old gods. He walks like someone the heavens favor. He spends gold like a king, but speaks like a friend. And you listen to it all. You file it away. You let it steep. You marry again, Calpurnia. She is quiet, soft-spoken, and sees more than she says. A perfect match for a man who lives in between war and peace, ambition and patience, myth and man. The Senate tries to slow you. They point at your debts, your indulgence, your lack of restraint, but you answer with victories, with crowds, with letters of praise from provinces that barely knew they existed until you sent them grain. You are accused of vanity. You admit it. You admit it. You are accused of ambition. You smile. What they don't understand is that ambition is not a sin when it is patient, and you are very, very patient. You begin to collect allies, not just friends, weapons. There is Crassus, the richest man in Rome, a furnace of coin and quiet resentment. There is Pompey, the golden boy, beloved, battle-tested, already adored. You meet them in candlelit corners. You talk softly. You don't flatter. You frame. A triumvirate, you suggest, not a threat. A balance. You play the middle, not because you're neutral, but because that's where the power is, and they agree. Just like that, Rome is no longer ruled by the Senate, or the people, or the gods. It is ruled by three men, one made of gold, one made of glory, one made of words. They call it the first triumvirate. But you don't care for titles, you care for timing, and now it's time. You run for consul, the highest office in Rome. Your enemies panic. They throw mud. They accuse you of sorcery, seduction, bribery. But it doesn't stick, because mud doesn't cling to laurel. You win easily, and you walk into the Senate chamber not as a boy from the Suburra, not as a pirate's prisoner, not as a minor priest or charming orator, but as Rome's first man. They cannot stop you now, but you don't rage, you don't boast. You pass laws, land reforms, debt forgiveness, policies for the people. You let them think you are generous. You let them believe you are still one of them, even as you begin to stretch your hands. Out to the borders of the Republic, you plant seeds, and no one hears the roots growing, but they will, they always do. When your term ends, they try to box you in. Retire, they suggest rest. But rest is for statues. You propose something bold. Governorship over Gaul. A wild place. A land of mud and war paint. Of unshaved warriors and unconquered pride. It is not Rome, but it is where empires are born. The Senate blinks. They hesitate. but it is already too late. Your name is already inked, your soldiers already sharpen their blades, and the laurel in your hair, it is no longer ceremonial, it is the shape of destiny. Tonight, you sleep again, not as a man running, not as a man rising, but as a man who now commands the mountain. Let the noise of Rome fade. Let the statues grow silent. Let the laurels rest on your brow like leaves made of dreams. Tomorrow, goal. Tomorrow, thunder. But for now, let's sleep where your name. Love has never been easy for you, not because you do not feel, but because your feelings are always braided with something else, intention. Even when you're in love, you're also watching, calculating, listening to the silence between words. That doesn't mean you don't care, but you care in shapes, not in songs. You married Cornelia for loyalty, for alignment, for honor. You married Pompey for power. She was beautiful, yes, born of a noble house, granddaughter of Sulla himself. The irony wasn't lost on you, but you did not laugh. You simply accepted the arrangement, as one accepts a sword handed in silence. It is a useful marriage at first, but Pompeii is not like Calpurnia. She is louder, prouder, dances like someone who knows she is being watched, and prefers it that way. You host a festival of Bonadi at your home, a women only, right? Sacred and old. No men allowed, but one man sneaks in anyway, disguised as a woman. His name is Clodius, a political wild card, bold and reckless. He says he came for love, that he wanted to see Pompeii, that he longed Rome erupts. Not because of the affair, affairs are common, but because he desecrated a ritual, because he turned sacred into scandal. You divorce Pompeia, not in rage, not even in sadness. You simply say, Caesar's wife must be above suspicion. It becomes a saying, another line from your mouth that sticks like a thorn in Rome's throat. They call you cold, but they forget you bled once. 2. They forget that your heart still moves when a voice trembles, or a hand lingers a moment too long on your sleeve. But you have learned to guard that warmth, to press it deep beneath the armor, because in this city, love is always a liability. So you let Pompey go, and you never speak her name again. You return to politics, sharper now, quieter. You walk among the marble like a man who has shed something. Soft, your allies notice. Crassus nods, impressed. Pompey watches, wary. The three of you still move, together in theory. But power is like fire between fingers. It wants to leap, to consume Pompey, beloved by the army and adored by the people, begins to hunger for more. You see it in his eyes, and he sees it in yours. But neither of you say anything, not yet. Instead, you write letters, you send envoys, you propose small changes to the law, changes that seem harmless, but shift the bones of the Republic, ever so slightly in your direction. You understand something that others don't. The knife is never as important as the silence before it. Meanwhile, Crassus funds your games, your debts, your dreams. He is not warm, he is not kind, but he is useful. You offer him credit, he offers you coin, and Rome watches the dance. 3 shadows in a temple of crumbling stone, one rich, one loved, one inevitable. You begin to hear things, that your popularity is unnatural, that your debts are a danger, that your ambitions are veiled threats, they say. He smiles too often, they say. He rises too fast. You do not answer, because you are already preparing to leave. not forever, but long enough. Gaul awaits. Wild, northern, ferocious. The Senate grants you command. 5 years. Later, 10. Not because they love you, because they hope you will fail, that the mud will swallow you, that the tribes will outmatch you, that time will forget you, but you know better, because you have already studied the art of becoming unforgettable. You leave Rome not like an exile, but like a storm gathering in silence. Your wife Calpurnia sees you off, she kisses your hand. You promise to write, you will. Your pen is as deadly as any sword you step into. Gaul with soldiers behind you and stars above you. You do not look back, because love, real love, waits. And Rome is not ready to love you yet. It must fear you first. Let sleep find you now. Not as a husband, not as a friend, not even as a statesman, but as something more uncertain. A figure stepping into wildness, into blood and fog and prophecy. Let Pompeii fade, like perfume lost in a breeze. Let the drums of Gaul begin to whisper. Through the trees, tonight, you sleep between 2 worlds. Tomorrow, the forest opens its mouth. 3 men hold Rome in their fists. 3 men, with 3 kinds of power. Crassus heavy with gold, always counting. Pompey adored, applauded, lifted by legions and laurels. And you, the 3rd, not richest, not yet most beloved, but most dangerous. Because you wear your ambition not as a crown, but as a shadow. You don't flash it. You let it follow you. The triumvirate is not official, not legal, not even whispered too loudly in Senate halls, but it is real. And in Rome, reality doesn't need ink. It needs intent. You smile at Crassus, shake hands with Pompey, nod politely at the trembling senators, and while they argue over laws and grain, you're already redrawing the republic in your head. Gaul is your gift from this alliance. 10 years of command. 10 years to become a legend. You depart the city like a tide, pulling back. But you're not gone, not really, because your presence lingers. Statues, graffiti, songs, sung by children in alleys. Rome remembers you, even in your absence, and in remembering, keeps you alive. Gaul is nothing like Rome. It is wide, wet, feral. Its rivers do not carry marble. Its people do not wear togas. They wear war paint. They chew bark. They scream into the wind. But you do not flinch, because you understand something your enemies don't. Chaos is not your enemy. Chaos is clay, and you have always known how to mold it. You arrive with soldiers, ragged, skeptical, more loyal to pay than to glory. You give them something better, belief. You drill them, feed them, speak to them like men, not tools. You eat where they eat. You walk where they march. You bleed when they bleed, and slowly your name becomes weight in their mouths. Caesar. No longer a patrician's echo, now a banner. You face tribe after tribe. Helvetii, Belgi, Nervi, each one fierce, proud, ready to die. You study them, not just their weapons, but their rhythms, how they move, when they pause, what they fear, and you adjust like water. You do not force Rome upon them. You let Rome slip beneath their skin like smoke. You build bridges faster than anyone believes possible. You surprise enemies by moving through forests where roads don't exist. You win battles not just with swords, but with stories after each victory. You write your commentaries on the Gallic War, clear, precise, never boasting. You don't say, "I conquered." You say, It was necessary. You don't say, I was brilliant. You say, the legions held. But everyone reads between the lines. Everyone knows who the silent hero is. Rome reads your words and sees a general, a poet, a leader shaped like destiny. Back home, Pompey watches at first with pride, then unease, because while he throws festivals, you fight wars. While he cuts ribbons, you cut paths through forests. And slowly, the applause that once fed him begins to feed you. Crassus, meanwhile, simmers. Wealth is no longer enough. He wants a piece of legend too. He goes east to Parthia, to glory, and he dies. His head paraded through foreign streets, his pride fed to an enemy king. And just like that, the triumvirate becomes two. You and Pompey, two shadows. Growing longer, you still call him friend. You'll still write him letters, warm and clever. But behind your words, there is always that same stillness, that pause before the blade. Because you both know, there is only room for one sunrise, and Rome has started to lean toward you. Because while Pompey stood still, you moved like fire through Gaul. You bent rivers, you rebuilt cities, you turned ragged soldiers into legends. You made Rome larger, and in doing so, you made yourself too big to ignore. You returned to Cisalpine Gaul, closer now, just across the Rubicon. You ask for something modest, to retain your army while running for consul. The Senate hesitates. Pompey frowns. They say, no, but you already knew they would. Because this isn't a request, it's a mirror, a way to show the world who fears you and who will follow. The night is thick with omens now. Birds flying wrong, statues sweating, dreams that taste like iron. But you sleep soundly, because the die is not cast yet tonight. Drift away, not as Caesar of Rome, nor Caesar of Gaul, but as Caesar of the in-between. Let Pompey's face blur into mist. Let Crassus's ghost vanish into dust. Let the echo of Gaul's drums become the rhythm of your breath. Tomorrow, the world shifts again. But for now, rest like a god disguised in exile, still smiling, still watching, still waiting. The forest has no temples, only shadows. The rivers have no bridges, only bones. And yet, this land, wild and wide and whispering, becomes your canvas. Gaul. It is not a place you rule, it is a place you become. It tests you, bleeds you, buries your men. But it also bends to you, piece by piece, like a wolf learning to sit at your feet. You march farther than any Roman before, over mountains, through fog, across rivers thought uncrossable. You do not stop. Not because you're invincible, but because you've learned. Momentum is power's disguise. Stand still, and Rome will ask questions. But if you keep moving, they only ask, where next? The legions adore you now, not with flattery. With faith, you sleep in their tents. You march in the rain. You eat bitter bread and laugh when they do. You are not their emperor. Not yet, but you are their father. In the way Rome no longer remembers how to be. You fight Vercingetorix, the name as sharp as his eyes, the last great Gaul. He unites tribes like you unite ambition. He is clever, fierce, noble in the way only. Enemies can be dot at Gavia. He beats you, you lose, you retreat, but you do not rage, because even in defeat, you see the next step. And at Alesia, you take it, you trap him, not with brute force, but with walls. A fortress around a city, and then another wall around that. The Gauls are trapped inside. The rescuers are trapped outside, and you You are the stillness between them. Your men fight for their lives, for food, for breath. You walk the ramparts as if born there, unbothered, silent, like someone who already sees the ending. And then, one morning, quiet, broken, Vercingetorix steps out. He rides his horse to your feet. He dismounts, removes his armor, kneels, and says nothing, because surrender is sometimes louder than any speech. You do not gloat, you simply nod, and Gaul, wild, muddy, screaming, Gaul becomes Rome. Your Rome, not because of the battles, but because you turned war into narrative. You send word back, letters, dispatches, modest in tone, miraculous in content. The Senate reads them, so do the people, and slowly a truth dawns across the Republic. Caesar is no longer a man in Gaul. He is a man of Gaul, part myth, part storm, part fate. Pompey grows restless. Your victories cast long shadows across his theater stages and marble villas. He tightens his grip on the Senate. He pretends not to see the way your name replaces his in the mouths of children. Back in Rome, rumors bloom like weeds that you wish to return with your army, that you will march into the forum, that you want a crown. You deny none of it. You let the silence answer. And that silence, so carefully shaped, becomes the loudest part of you. They ask you to disband your army before returning. You refuse, because to disband your army is to forget who you are. And so you wait, just outside the border. The Rubicon, a small river, a thin line, a boundary between duty and defiance. You ride along its edge, your horse uneasy, your men watching. You say nothing for hours, and then, in the quiet of twilight, with birds fleeing and frost thick on the ground, you whisper, "Let the die be cast," and you cross, not with fanfare, with purpose, and all of Rome holds its breath, because this soft step is the moment everything changes. You are no longer a general. You are no longer a politician. You are no longer just a man with laurel in his hair. You are revolution, made flesh, and though no blood has yet been spilled, every heart in Rome knows the war has already begun. Let sleep come now. Let the mud of Gaul dry from your boots. Let the banners fall for now. Let Vercingetorix fade into the folds of memory tonight. You were still moving, but not toward battle, toward becoming, toward the next page, toward Rome, toward whatever waits across the Rubicon. It is not a river, not really. It is a breath held. Too long, a silence before thunder. A question whispered into the dark. Rubicon, small, narrow, quiet, hardly a threat. Children splash in it. Farmers water their mules there. But to you, it is everything, because to cross it is to break Rome's spell, to step from citizen to outlaw, from general to challenger, from servant of the state to something other. You ride alone for a while, letting your men trail behind, their armor clinking like chimes on a funeral breeze. The air is cold. Your cloak flutters, the horse snorts, sensing the hesitation in your hands. And for a moment, just a moment, you wonder, what if you don't? What if you turn back, live a long life, write books, grow old, die in a bed? But no, the thought passes like smoke, because that was never your story, and you know it. You dismount, stand at the water's edge. The current laps at your boots, soft and absurd. This is the line, not drawn by gods, drawn by men, men whose names will be forgotten unless you cross. You say it softly for the river to hear. The die is cast, and you step forward, no horns, no screams, just the sound of your own breath, and history folding itself into your shadow. The men follow because, of course they do. You are no longer a general. You are an inevitability. Rome explodes into panic. The Senate flees. Scrolls are dropped. Doors slam. Pompey, proud, golden Pompey, gathers his forces. But not fast enough, because you move like memory. Now, quick, quiet, permanent. You do not pillage. You do not rage. You occupy like water seeping into every crevice. The cities surrender. The gates swing open. The people cheer. Not because they love you, because they know you are real. You send letters, invitations, warnings dressed as compliments. Some senators join you. Some pretend neutrality. Some pray to old gods for your fall. You write to Cicero, the philosopher, the orator, and say, "Come stand with me." He doesn't. He fears what you are. Not just your power, your clarity, because clarity, like yours, cuts both ways. Pompey escapes. He runs south, then east, to Greece. He believes he can gather the East, the legions, the old republic. You let him run, because you're not chasing him, you're replacing him. You reform, you forgive, you redistribute grain, cancel debts, reinforce laws. You act like a man already in charge, because you are. But still, Pompey waits, gathers, breeds hesitation in the hearts of those who once clapped for you. And so you go to him. You cross the sea, not with rage, with purpose. Ad Pharsalus, the sky is grey. Two Romes face each other, one old, one not quite born. Pompey's army is larger. Your men are tired, underdogs, but your heart is still like it was at the Rubicon, like it always is, just before everything changes. You speak softly to your troops, not of honor, not of vengeance, you say. If I fail, speak of me kindly. If I win, remember why we began, and then it begins. The battle is thunder, ash, screams. You do not flinch, you do not shout. You move like you always do, not forward, not back. Through Pompey's army collapses. He runs, disguised, defeated, desperate. He flees to Egypt, hoping for refuge. He will not find it, because you are not chasing him with soldiers. You're chasing him with the shape of history, and history does not forgive. Pompey is betrayed, killed on a beach, his head delivered to you in a basket. You do not smile, you do not rage, you do not even touch it. You weep, not because you loved him, but because this is how old things die. Not in battle, but in quiet, lonely disgrace, and even in victory. There is sorrow. You remember the boy you once were, watching from rooftops, from doorways, from temple steps. You wonder what he would say now. The boy of the Suburra, the child of dust and hunger. He would not recognize you, and yet he is still here, still walking in your shadow, still watching tonight. Sleep not as the man who crossed the Rubicon, not even as the man who ended Pompey. Sleep as the man in between between storm and calm, between rule and ruin, between what was and what must be. Let the river ripple behind your eyes. Let Pompey's silence echo in your breath. Let the Senate's fear fall like rain beyond your dreams. You have crossed, and now there is no more going back. Pompey is gone, not in battle, not in triumph, not as a hero beneath banners or thunder, but in a moment of betrayal, on a quiet Egyptian shore, by hands that smiled as they struck. They thought they were doing you a favor. They thought, perhaps, you would rejoice. But they did not understand what Pompey meant to you. He was not just an enemy. He was the other half of a broken mirror when his head is brought to you in Alexandria, sealed in a jar, his face frozen mid-thought. You do not look away, but you do not smile. You say, simply, "This was not my wish." And in that moment, everyone in Egypt learns, Caesar is not a butcher. He is something far more dangerous. He is a man who grieves in silence. You declare a period of mourning for Pompey. You burn his remains with honor, and in doing so, you take something more precious than life or victory. You take the memory of Pompey and make it yours. Egypt, too, begins to unfold before you. You did not come for its throne, and yet you find yourself drawn to it, or rather, to the woman who wears it like silk, Cleopatra. She enters like moonlight, not announced, simply ... Their eyes, like old gold. Voice like honey, thick with secrets. A queen, not by birthright, but by will. She sails down the Nile to meet you, not with armies, but with stories. She brings rugs, stitched with riddles, perfumes soaked in memory, and words. So many words, like swords, hidden in laughter. You see her, and she does not flinch. You speak to her, and she does not bow. And in this strange land, in this palace of pillars and perfume, you are no longer Caesar the conqueror. You are just a man who listens. You stay longer than planned. You dine in rooms where incense dances through candlelight. You float down rivers where crocodiles sleep like gods. You watch her speak to advisors, to priests, to servants, and always. She commands with silken silence. She is unlike any Roman woman. Because she is not Roman, she is something older. She is something older. She asks you once, softly, while wine warms your chest, "Do you ever sleep?" You laugh, but the answer is no. You haven't, not truly. For years, how can a man sleep when every breath shapes an empire? She teaches you how. Not with potions or prayers, but with presence, with moments so full they empty you. You give her Rome's protection, she gives you a son. Caesarionaa. Name like a prophecy. You leave Egypt not as a conqueror, but as a man who has remembered how to feel. You return to Rome with sand still in your robes, her voice still echoing in your spine. The people cheer, not just because you won, because you returned. You walk through the gates not as a general, but as something new, a symbol the Senate watches with narrowed eyes. You pardon your enemies, you rehire your critics. You speak not of punishment, but of peace. And yet, the peace is shaped like you. Your statues rise, your name is minted in silver. Your busts appear in temples beside Mars, Jupiter. You don't ask for worship, but you don't stop it either, because you've learned power doesn't need to shout. It only needs to be familiar. You hold for triumphs, for each more lavish than the last. Painted elephants, wagons of gold, captives in chains, rivers of wine. But between the drums and garlands, you feel it, a quiet disquiet. Some smile too widely, some cheer too long, some senators bow too low. You are becoming something Rome has never loved for long. A certainty, uncertainty, in a republic built on balance, is a kind of heresy. But you don't slow. You pass reforms, redistribute land, expand citizenship, rebuild temples, refill granaries. and you rewrite the calendar itself. January, February, March, all reshaped beneath your hands. The Julian calendar, time itself, bends to you now. Still, the whispers grow, too powerful, they say to beloved, too bold. They say you want to be king, you deny it, but gently, with a smile that says, would that be so terrible? One day, someone places a crown in your path during a public festival. You refuse it once. Then again, 3 times the crowd roars. They adore your humility. But the Senate sees it for what it is, a test, and tests have consequences. But you are calm because Pompey is gone. The triumvirate is ashes. Cleopatra is safe. Your name is carved into time. You sleep now, sometimes not, with swords at your side, but with dreams of papyrus boats and distant songs. Let the marble of Rome fade. Let the chants quiet. Let the flame of Pompey extinguish in the corner of your dreams. He is gone, but you are only beginning. There are places where time does not move forward. It pools, it curls, it sings in circles, like water around a drain. Egypt is such a place, not the Egypt of scrolls or maps, but the Egypt of Cleopatra. She doesn't greet you with armies, she greets you with rhythm, silk, scent, sound, an empire draped in incense and mathematics. A queen who knows when to be thunder and when to be velvet. You did not expect her to be so still, so studied, so completely aware of every breath in the room. She is not beautiful in the Roman way. She is beautiful in the way a storm over the desert is beautiful, inevitable, impossible to look away from. And when she speaks, it's as though the Nile itself has learned to form syllables. You meet her first in secrecy. They smuggle her into the palace rolled inside a carpet, not as a trick, but as a statement. You think you know, surprise. She seems to say, you do not forget the moment she emerges. She stands, brushes off dust, meets your gaze, unshaken, unbend, as though the rug were a throne, and you, for once, do not speak first. You listen to her story, to her request, to her command without command. Her brother Ptolemy has pushed her aside. She wants her crown back, but she doesn't plead. She simply waits for you to understand what you've already decided, that this woman belongs in power, that this woman ... belongs. You support her not with soldiers, but with your presence. And presence, you've learned, is sometimes mightier than force. She regains her throne, not by blood, but by breath. And then, one night, she invites you to sail, not for strategy, for stars. The boat is carved like a swan, painted with symbols older than Latin. Perfume clings to the sails. Musicians hum in corners as if the air itself requires tuning. She lies beside you, not speaking, not needing to. And for the first time in years, perhaps ever, you do not think of Rome. You think of her shoulder brushing yours. You think of the moon floating like a coin above the mast. You think of how silence can sometimes hold. More than any empire, you return to that boat night after night. Your guards wait on shore. Your scrolls go unread. Your past sleeps in another country. She shows you the temples, the scrolls of Thoth, the hieroglyphs etched into stone like whispers meant for eternity. You walk hallways where gods are still spoken of in the present tense, and you begin to wonder, what if you could be more than Roman? What if the Republic's bones are too brittle? What if Rome is not the final shape? What if she, this queen with serpent eyes, is a doorway? You speak of power, of legacy, of time. She smiles and listens like someone who has already seen how your story ends. And then, without ceremony, she gives you a child, a son. Caesarion, tiny, wrinkled, full of possibility. You do not cry, you hold him gently, as if he might vanish, and you feel the shape of history change in your hands. He will never rule Rome, but he will mark your heart. You stay in Egypt longer than you meant to. Rumors bloom back home that you have gone soft, that you are bewitched, that you now speak in riddles and wear linen robes. You smile when you hear them, because they misunderstand something vital. This is not weakness. This is remembering. You remember how to look at a woman and not see. Strategy, how to hold a child and not calculate. Inheritance, how to sit beside a river and let it speak first. Cleopatra teaches you nothing, and everything she does not sharpen. You, she unmasks you, and in the space she opens, you see a version of yourself, not driven by Rome, but by wonder. Still, you must leave, because Rome is always there, tapping at your window, reminding you of the unfinished page. You promise her nothing. She asks for nothing, because what you shared was not a bargain. It was a pause, and pauses, like stars, are never meant to last until morning. You sail away quietly. No procession, no declarations, just the soft hush of the Nile parting behind you. And in that hush, you carry more than armor and scrolls. You carry her, not in body, in tone. You return to Rome, different, still powerful, still praised. But inside, something has shifted. The edge remains. But now there's music in it. You do not speak of Egypt. You do not bring Cleopatra's name into Senate halls. But every time you pass the Tiber, you glance at the water just for a moment, just to remember. Let the river whisper you to sleep now. Let the queen's breath linger on your shoulder like warmth left behind in a robe. Let Caesarion's fingers curl in your memory. Tonight, you are not Rome's, you are hers, and in some quiet way, you always will be. Rome roars when you return, not with joy, not with fear, with something in between, a stunned, reluctant awe, as though the city had forgotten the shape of your shadow, and now must relearn it, stone by stone. The streets are cleaned, the garlands are hung, the trumpets blow, but they sound uncertain, as if the horns themselves wonder whether you are still just a man. You pass beneath the gates, not like a citizen, but like a myth walking upright. The crowds cheer, but some are too loud. They cheer as if trying to convince themselves that they still understand who you are. You wave, gently, because it's not the crowd you're measuring, it's the Senate. They sit with stiff backs. Their eyes do not blink. Their hands tremble only slightly beneath the folds of their togas. You have returned from Gaul, from civil war, from Egypt. You have no equal now. You are the Republic's most powerful man, and that is the true crisis, not your victories, your existence. You speak before them with calm, with clarity, with comfort. You do not threaten, you do not gloat. You thank them for their service, praise their wisdom, offer them reforms. You act in every way like a man who wishes only for harmony, and yet your presence undoes them, because they remember Pompey. They remember what happens to those who stand across from you. They remember how easily you cross rivers and lines and expectations. You were named dictator for 10 years. Then for life, they voted, with trembling hands. They seal their fate with ink and fear, and you You do not crown yourself. You rebuild. Grain is distributed more fairly. Debts are forgiven. The calendar, again, is corrected. Time itself brushing against your fingers like silk. You appoint magistrates, prefects, governors. You stretch Rome's fingers across the world, and each fingertip wears your ring. You wear purple, sometimes not as a statement, but as a rhythm. You speak of peace, but your eyes still glow like someone who remembers war too fondly to leave it. Behind completely, Cleopatra visits, briefly, quietly, with Caesarion. Now walking, she does not parade. She does not wear a crown in public. But the whispers grow louder than any. Chariot wheel, a foreign queen walks our forum, and she bears Caesar's. Son, you ignore the whispers, because you've built your life by walking through noise, not around it. You dine with senators. You kiss your wife. You pass laws that seem small, but shift tectonic plates beneath Rome's aging foundation. And yet, there are looks, glances traded like currency in shadowed corners, scribes, who suddenly fall silent when you pass, guards who stand too still, and a question whispered first in jest, then in tremble will he crown himself. You do not say yes, but you do not say no. You let it hang in the air, a suggestion, a scent, a glint of sunlight just sharp enough to blind, because you know something most men forget. Fear is not the absence of love. It is the price of being. Irreplaceable, you plan your next move. A campaign east against Parthia. A second crossing. A final conquest. Not for gold. Not for glory, but for shape, to finish. The sculpture of your life before the chisel slips. You plan to leave in spring, but spring does not come for you. Not this time, because even the man who rewrites calendars cannot outrun the clock forever. There are rumors of plots, of knives, of friends who are not friends. You hear them, of course you do. But you do not run. You never have. And besides, the Republic is yours now. Who would dare? The answer will come soon, but not yet. Not tonight. 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 You sleep in Rome, not in a palace, but in a house you've lived in since before the laurel, before the titles, before Cleopatra. Your bed is familiar. The night is cold. The stars, the same stars that floated above the Nile, blink down without judgment. You breathe deeply. You listen to the hum of a city you remade, to the silence of those who wait, and in that silence, something like peace. Let the forum fade behind your eyelids. Let the roar soften into lullaby. Let the crown remain a dream, not yet touched. Asterisk, asterisk, tonight, you are not emperor, not conqueror, not even Caesar. Tonight, you are just returned. They test you, gently at first. A crown is presented in the forum, not by senators, not by scribes, but by Mark Antony, your friend, your blade, the man who rides just behind you, laughing too loud, drinking too much, loving too easily. He lifts the crown for all to see. A simple thing, gold laurel, a band for a god. He offers it to you. You refuse. The crowd cheers, not wildly, but cautiously, like people who have watched a fire retreat, only to smell smoke again. Antony lifts it again. He smiles, as if it's a game, but your eyes do not move. You shake your head. A second refusal. The crowd grows louder, and yet, they do not leave. They wait, because they know the script is not finished. Antony tries a third time. The crown hovers above your head, like a question, like a dagger turned upside down, and once again you refuse. You say, it's not time. You say, Rome is not ready. You say, you are not a king, but you do not destroy the crown. You let it be placed in the temple of Jupiter, where gods rest, where dreams wait, and the people, they cheer. Some with relief, some with rage, some with eyes narrowed, wondering, why does he hesitate? Why does he not just take it? Or has he already? The Senate is uneasy, not because you refused, because you refused so well, because you made it look like humility, and humility, in a man with your shadow, is more frightening than ambition. You keep working, you pass more laws, reform the Senate. Again, you limit corruption, you regulate grain, you open citizenship to those beyond the city's borders. You are praised, then mocked, then feared, then praised. Again, because no one quite knows what you are anymore. A man, a myth, a monarch without title. You commission a statue not of yourself, of Clementia, the goddess of mercy. She stands in marble with her eyes, half closed, forgiving forbearing, but Rome does not miss the message. You are mercy, and mercy only. Exists where there is absolute power. You're offered more honors. Your birthday becomes a holiday. Your face appears on coins. Your name is chanted in temples. You do not ask for these things, but you do not stop them either, because the people love stories, and you are simply playing your part. Still you sense it, in glances, in the silences, between words, in the way Brutus holds your gaze a moment too long. They want you to say it, to make it clear, to declare yourself king, so they may decide what to do with the king. But you keep them in shadow, because you've learned, power lasts longest when it is not named aloud. And yet, there are cracks in February. The omens arrive. A bull refuses to be sacrificed. Birds fly backward. The soothsayers warn. Beware the Ides of March. You smile, because death has always walked beside you. Why should it be different now? You begin to dream strangely, of storms over cities, of blood in fountains, of the moon weeping over the capital. Calpurnia begs you to stay home. She holds your sleeve like it's a lifeline. You reassure her, with that same voice you've used on soldiers before battle, soft, unshaken, not because you are fearless, but because fear has no purchase in a man who has already become legend. You dress plainly that morning, no armor, no rings, just a robe, tied loosely. The Senate awaits. You step outside. The streets feel colder than usual, not in temperature, in tone, too quiet, too clear. But you walk forward, because you always have. You move not as a man expecting death, but as a man who understands. It cannot be dodged forever. Let the forum soften behind your eyes. Let the crown remain unclaimed, untaken. Let the laurel fall quietly onto the floor, one leaf at a time. Tonight you are still breathing, but tomorrow, the knives may wake. The day does not scream. It whispers. The Ides of March arrive not with thunder, but with an ordinary sunrise, warm, pale, unremarkable. You rise from your bed, as you always do. Calpurnia watches you, eyes clouded with dread. She has dreamed of blood, of statues toppling, of the house filled with screams. She begs you, one last time, not to go. Stay home, she says. Just this once. And for a moment, you almost do. You linger by the window, watching the light climb the rooftops. Like a thief. The air smells of smoke and citrus. You remember another morning, long ago, when you stood at the edge of the Rubicon and made a choice. This morning feels the same, but you smile, not because you are without fear, but because you've accepted it. You are already history. You leave your home wearing white. No sword, no guards, just yourself, wrapped in the calm of a man who knows his story ends today. The walk to the theatre of Pompey is quiet. The crowds still cheer, but softer, uncertain. You nod to them gently, not as a king, not as a god, as something heavier, a name already slipping from lips into legend. The Senate gathers inside the portico. Marble columns stretch above like the ribs of a great beast. Statues stare from the walls, old generals, dead laws. You enter. They part for you like the tide. There is no music, no herald, only footsteps and breath. You walk slowly. You see them, Brutus, Cassius, Decimus, their faces too, still their hands hidden. And yet you do not stop, because to stop is to admit you. No, to stop is to give them power, and you've never been good at that. You take your seat. Someone approaches with a petition, a distraction, and then the first knife. It does not roar, it whispers into your ribs. Beneath your arm you gasp, not from pain, from recognition. The second follows. Then a third. You rise, stagger. They surround you now, not senators, assassins. In togas, you try to speak, but the air has left you. Blades flash. You reach for something, for the hem of your robe, for the edge of breath, for the name of the man beside you, Brutus, your friend, your almost son. He looks at you, not with rage, not with sorrow, but with finality, and that, more than the knives, undoes you. You do not say, "Et2, brute." That is the theatre's line. You say nothing, you simply fall, not with a scream, with a sigh. You cover your face with your robe, as if to say, "Let me leave unseen." As if to say, this part of the story is not for the audience. 20-3 wounds, none. Alone, fatal, but together, they unravel you. The senators flee. Your body lies cooling beneath the statue of Pompey. And how perfect, you think in the last flicker of thought, that the man you defeated holds your corpse in marble arms. The forum outside pulses with rumors. Caesar is dead. No, he lives. He flew into the sky. The gods took him. Brutus saved the Republic. Rome is bleeding. You are no longer here, but already you are everywhere, in the coins, in the streets, in the whispers between citizens. They will burn your body. They will place your name in mouths for centuries. They will crown your adopted son, your heir, Octavin. He will become Augustus. He will wear purple and smile like you once did. He will finish what you began. But none of that belongs to you now. You are no longer you. You are story. You are shadow. You are the lesson told in schools, and battlefields, and dreams. Tonight, you do not sleep. You rest, in silence, in marble, in the space between thunder and myth. He does not rise that morning. He lies where they left him, beneath Pompey's statue, curled in folds of white cloth, face hidden. The blood has dried, dark and rust-red. His body is still warm when they come to look. Some of the senators dare a glance, others cannot. Meet his silence, because they have not killed a tyrant. They have killed a symbol, and symbols do not bleed like men. They echo. Julius Caesar. Gaius Julius Caesar is dead. But even before the flames reach his pyre, his name begins to multiply. His death is not the end, it is a detonation. They carry him through Rome, not quietly. The people come by the thousands. They do not believe it at first, that the man who fed them, fought for them, laughed at their jokes, cried for their hunger, lifted their children to his arms, is now just smoke and memory. Some weep, some wail, some stand in stunned silence, unable to imagine the world without him in it. He is placed on a funeral pyre in the Forum. Mark Antony stands. Beside the body, he does not smile. He does not shout. He speaks. His words do not praise the man. They ignite him, and with the fire, Rome changes, the flames rise. The air swells with grief and fury. Citizens tear their clothes, throw logs and furniture onto the fire, scream for vengeance. The senators who once shook his hand now run from their own city, because they know you can kill a man. You cannot kill what he made of himself. They thought his ambition was his greatest danger. It wasn't, it was his storytelling, his ability to shape silence into sentence, to make laws feel like poetry, to make ordinary soldiers feel immortal, to make Rome feel possible again. That is why he will not be forgotten. His heir, Octavian, will rise from the smoke like a phoenix. Not loud, patient, cold. He will not rule as Caesar did. He will rule longer and harsher, and Rome will call him Augustus. And for centuries after, every emperor will be called by Caesar's name, as if to say, we do not build men anymore. We build monuments in their shape, and yet, somewhere beneath the ashes, there is still the boy from the sub-URA watching, remembering, not of battles, not of crowns, but of his mother's voice, of the first time he saw the Forum, of the nights he whispered to the stars, asking if they ever listened. He did not ask to become legend, but once it knocked, he let it in. He walked with death beside him like an old friend. He forgave more than he punished. He laughed more than he mourned. And in the end, he covered his face, not in fear, but in grace. He wanted to leave quietly. History did not allow it. You, dear listener, have traveled a long way tonight, from cradle to Senate, from pirates to pyramids, from the Rubicon to the Ids. You have been child, lover, leader, ghost. You have stood in sandals, too wide to fill, and now you drift from them. You are no longer him, no longer Caesar, no longer the dreamer who became Rome's sharpest whisper. You are simply you again, breathing softly, somewhere between sleep and story. Let your hands relax. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let your thoughts settle like dust in a quiet forum, because his story, your story, is over, but the echo goes on. Good night, Caesar. Good night, Rome. Good night, you.